So, do you feel like every single time you go to an IEP meeting, it's kind of like a constant battle to make sure that your child will be included again? Or do you have that nagging feeling like, yeah, I've been able to get some things changed for my child, but what about some of the other kids in our school? Or maybe you're on some school district or state level committees and you remember that excitement when you either got the invitation to join or maybe the governor appointed you to be on the state level committee. And it's like, that's a big deal, right? But now, after going to some of those meetings months after month, it's like, I don't know, are we really making a difference? Or is this just another time where we have this token parent input? So, if those things resonate with you, I'm glad you're here, either watching the live or the replay. So, let us know, say hi, tell me where you are. And we are going to dive in to how we can kind of turn some things around these days. So, stay tuned. Give me some comments. Let's see who's here. Oh, good. Jenny, Heather. Hey, how are you? I'm so glad you're here. So, yes, we are going to be talking about how to make a bigger difference. And so we're going to be diving in here because as an advocate, as a former teacher, as a parent, I know what it's like to go to IEP meeting after IEP meeting and feeling like it's such a constant fight to make sure that your child gets that privilege of being accepted and included in general ed. And that can be really, really frustrating, right? And I remember those feelings like when you leave an IEP meeting and you're just kind of feeling dazed, and it's like, shit, we're going to have to do this again next year. It's never over. We never have this guarantee that our child's going to get what they need. And that can be depressing, frustrating. Kind of like you want to pull your hair out, right? So, how do you feel when you have to do that? Liz, I love it. Liz is here from Oregon. Let's show your comment. She says, hi. She said, I was on a state ed team. I thought it was useless. I know. So thank you for being here. And Joseph is here from Texas. And we also have people from Pennsylvania. So thanks for being here. Abby's here from Kentucky. Um, yeah. It's really hard, right? And what we're going to be talking about today is how we can change this, right? That's what we need to be doing. And so the other thing I think about is like, when we lay down, when we finally have a chance to lay down and try to go to sleep, and you might have that practice of praying, saying gratitudes for what has happened well that day. And one of the things is that you are so grateful that your child can be included and is included, but you also have like that nagging feeling of like, yeah, this is good for my kid, but what about all the other kids at school? And sometimes I think we just think, well, magically through our individual parent advocacy, we will have inclusion spread throughout our district, throughout our state, throughout our country. And I think we know that making change for one child at a time isn't going to do it. Now, you may have heard that, oops, my computer likes to jump around. You may have heard that quote before. If you've met one child with autism, you've met one child with autism. And I like to say, if one child is included, you have included one child. Now, we know that this isn't going to give us systemic real change, right? Well, the problem is you've heard from many other parents, you've heard from advocates like me who has said, yes, your individual advocacy is making a difference. You are creating this path that other children behind your child will be able to use this path to inclusion. Well, and it's not because, you think about it. I mean, it's not because you haven't been trying, right? I mean, you've been, going to, well, shoot, I've got my slides mixed up, but you've been going to lots of virtual conferences. You've been doing research and finding new articles and sharing them with the staff at school. You've been talking with other parents. You've been trying a lot of things. And unfortunately, what we don't realize is that path can be overgrown very quickly. That path that you forged when you got your child included, it's probably not there anymore. And it's like, what? Holy cow. Yeah, and that's what we have to look at. And I know when our son Dylan was 3 and we were having contentious meetings because we wanted our son in a community preschool because we figured that was the least restrictive environment, instead of what the district was offering was a special ed preschool class. Now, the special ed preschool class had 50% with, children without disabilities, 50% with disabled children. So they considered that, like an integrated class. Well, we know natural proportions, right? 50% of the kids probably shouldn't be having disabilities in order to make that really an inclusive class. So as parents, we thought it was really important that if we wanted Dylan to be included later in school, that we better start that when he was a preschooler. So we had many meetings. We couldn't come to, a resolution. And I remember those days of like crying, standing on my front porch, talking to my best friend, Kathy Snow, saying, I don't know if I can keep doing this due process. It's like so stressful. It's like it impacts your family. You're bitchy and crabby because things aren't going well. There's like no sleep, right? And it's like, how can I keep doing this? But persevere we did. And luckily, we were able to settle at mediation. Dylan was able to have the choice, and he did go to the community preschool. The other thing that was really important that we wrote in the settlement was that the district would pay the tuition of the community preschool. Now, I wanted to make sure that was a clause in our settlement agreement, not because we couldn't afford to pay for the tuition, but I knew I've had this training, right? What I'm doing now is going to set a precedent for other families. So we want to make sure that financially the district would be providing this free, appropriate public preschool education. So anyway, so we got that in the settlement, and we were like so ecstatic. Dylan had a wonderful time in his preschool class. And we were able to continue to have him be included. But it was interesting about, I don't know, right before we were moving from Colorado to Idaho, I got a call from a parent in our school district saying, could I come to an IEP meeting with her? She had a preschool son. She was really nervous. She was scared. She didn't know what to do. And it was like talking to these school people. She felt so intimidated. And I was like, whoa, we're packing boxes to move. But it's like, no. And what was fun is it was the elementary school where Dylan and my other kids went to. So it was like, this would be kind of nice to end my advocacy in Colorado by going back to this elementary school. So I went, we had the meeting in the preschool class in the elementary school. The teacher was showing the parent all around, all the needs centers, the different activities they could have. Um, and I could just see this kind of fear in the parent's eyes. And it just did not feel like what she thought she wanted her son to do. And it was not the picture of preschool that she had for her other kids. And it's like, I don't want, I want him to experience that same. So when we were talking about it, it was kind of like a foregone conclusion that they would have to go to the special ed preschool class. And I said, well, what about a community preschool option? Everyone just looked at me and it's like, what is she talking about? We have the special teacher, we have the special equipment. And I'm like, no, the community preschool option. I said, that's an option that we offer in this district. And the district even like pays tuition for it. And everyone was looking at me like, I have never heard of this. And it was like, shit, this is no longer an option for other families. I thought we were setting this precedent. It would be long lasting. Other people would be able to have this option. And no, it didn't happen that way. And that path did get overgrown. So, what we've learned is advocating for one child at a time hasn't gotten us very far. And we don't want to continue that, right? So I want you to, let's see here. Oops. I don't know if I just like really messed everything up here. So let me see. Oh dear, I think I have my monitor switched around. So now I'm kind of confused. You might see my other slides, but that's okay, right? So let's see if we can advance. Advance. Yeah, so I think you're seeing my whole different view. Oh, well, sorry. Shoot, I wonder how to correct that. I don't know. Um, but what I would like you to do in the comments, I want you to take a guess of the percentage of students with intellectual disabilities who were in general ed classes for at least 80% of their day. So write it in the comments, and I'm going to see if I can get my PowerPoint figured out here. What's the percentage of students with intellectual disabilities that have been included for 80% or more? And this was taken from the 2020-2021 school year. So write that in the comments, and I'm going to try and figure out my PowerPoint. Because I thought I was being so fancy today, and using my different monitors. But now it's like, no, it's like, I don't know. So I'm going to try this again and see what happens. So I'm going to stop that. I'm going to start this. So I have 10%, 16%, 5%. Let's try this again. Oh, well. I don't know why this isn't working for us. Okay, I think I have it figured out. All right, and I can make this even bigger. So you guys have some low numbers there. Do you think it's really that low? Um, Ginny is in Connecticut, and Ginny says, I don't know the percentage, but I know it's low. Part of the problem is that many parents don't want inclusion because they've been sold that exclusion equals better services. Yes. How many of you agree with Ginny's statement? Give us an amen. Yes, yes, yes. Sharon's here, and she says, I think only about 12%. Lisa says 16% in Texas. Um, and so, yeah, that's great if you also know that for your own state. So let's see if we can advance this now. Is it going to advance? The depressing number is nationwide. 17.9% of kids with intellectual disabilities are included for at least 80% of the day. 17.9%. So across the whole country, we have this small section of kids that are included. And guess what? That's not good enough, right? It's like, yikes. So now I want you to take a guess of what's the percentage of those students with intellectual disabilities that are included. What percent of them are actively participating and making progress in the general ed curriculum? Let's see. Let's see. So we have 17.9% are included. Out of that 17.9, what do you think the percentages of those kids that are actively included? Yes. yes. I don't know my yeah, out of these, how many are getting meaningful inclusion? Yeah. So maybe 1%, maybe 3%. Heather says, I think that is if they don't have behaviors too, right? Lisa says 0. Sharon says less than half. Let me show you a comment. Jan, hey Jan, she thinks 3. So yeah, I mean, if we wonder, right? What is it? Now, the problem is we don't know that. We don't collect data on that. So it's like, yeah, 17.9% of kids with intellectual disabilities might be sitting in a general ed classroom for at least 80% of the day. But are they on that island in the mainstream where they're sitting at the back table with a para, doing something completely different than what the rest of the class is? Or are they sitting at a desk, but they're watching a video on a tablet that has nothing to do with what the class is studying? So it's like, not only is that number so small, but then it's even smaller for how many kids are really participating and learning in general ed. So this is something we have to change, right? And it's not like you haven't been trying. I mean, this is where the part comes in where you're looking at the latest research. You're going to, you know, it seems like conference after conference, virtual conference, Zooming with different webinars. And then you've just come to accept the belief that you're going to have to fight every year for your kid to be included. And that's just how it's going to be. So it is something that we need to look at. And today we're going to be looking at how we can think differently. What can we do to make a bigger impact? Because what we're doing isn't working. It hasn't been working for decades. And you can look at the data and you know that. You can look at what's happening in your school, in your district, and you know that. So thinking differently, and this is something that I'm really looking forward to, because when we switch what we're doing, we can make a bigger impact. And so, I don't know if you've heard, but in January, I'm so excited. I need my pom-poms. We are going to have a new membership community, and it's going to be for parents, educators, yes, teachers, related service people, administrators, community people. Did I say students? Yes. So we are going to be looking at, as a collective group, how can you be making change back in your school district or at your state level? And we know that great change can happen because you look at, back in the 60s and 70s and all that grassroots advocacy. I mean, that's how we got our first federal law, right? And so let's look at a way that we can be working smarter, not harder. We can be looking at things in a new light. So if you would love to know more about this new membership community that's going to be opening up in January, let us know in the comments, because I want to keep you connected, because this is going to be really impactful. It's going to be totally different than what you see in other kinds of Facebook groups and such. So I am totally excited about it. Can you tell? Now, today we're going to talk about, and let me show my slide to you. Today we're going to be talking about one solution. And then next Thursday, November 17th, we'll be talking about another solution. So we're not going to leave you just with the problems. We're going to give you a solution too. So let's see. The first thing is we have to stop asking how questions. Now, how questions are good to ask, but most of the time we ask them too soon. And instead, we need to be asking better questions. When we ask better questions, we get better answers. So that's the first thing that we're going to do, is look at why we want to stop asking so many how questions. Like, how can we do this? How did somebody else do this? Tell me how this can really work. We want to look at doing something different. So you may have heard me recommend this book before. It's a book that I read over and over. It's from Peter Block, and the title is The Answer to How is Yes. And in our new membership group, looking at better questions to ask is going to be one component of our group. And so I wanted to share with you some of Peter's thoughts about the problem with asking how questions. So he tells us that how questions, when we ask them too soon, it can really be counterproductive. And he tells us that how questions usually deal with control and predictability. And what happens is we wind up postponing the questions that really matter. How questions asked too soon can postpone the future. And what happens is it keeps us locked in the status quo and current thinking. And that's what we're going to be changing. Because we know that the question how, when we ask how questions, it's usually because we're looking for an answer outside of ourselves. And it really can be an indirect expression of self-doubt. And we can find ourselves, kind of circling into these spinning out of control self-doubts. And we wind up settling for what is or what we can quickly learn instead of asking questions about what matters most. So we know one solution is to not to lose focus on the better questions that we want to be asking, and also knowing that we want to be looking for the right question versus the right answer. So today we've talked about a number of things, right? We've learned that individual advocacy isn't cutting it. It isn't making a difference. And that's a reality. Now, I don't want you to leave here and say, well, Charmaine says we shouldn't be advocating for our kids. We should be doing all this other stuff. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is individual advocacy is critical. I mean, I would not want to be a parent and have somebody say, well, in 3 to 5 years, it's going to get better. Just wait. No, our kids can't wait, right? Every moment, every day counts. So we still have to do our individual advocacy. I think that's a reality until we get the systemic change. And if you are a parent that has that nagging feeling like, I could be doing something on a bigger level, making more impact for more kids, then I really hope that you'll join us in our new group in January, because that's going to be our focus, is how we can make bigger impact. Now, the other thing I want to make sure that you understand is, yes, in this new community that we're going to open in January, probably most of us are going to come from the experience of advocating for inclusive education for kids that are disabled. And that's a big part of what we want to change. However, there are also so many other things, right, that we could be doing to change the public education system. So if you have a passion for, I wish our district would implement universal design for learning. I wish they would train all the teachers and provide that coaching. Then that's a project that I want you to work on locally. And what will happen is our membership group will help you and support you and say, let's look at what else could be done here. What's another question we could ask? How can we market this idea better? Or you might have a passion for restorative justice. It's like, boy, if we could have that in our schools, think of the difference that would make. And I saw Trisha was on here earlier. Trisha's from Idaho, and Trisha and I and a few other parents are working right now in Idaho to get a state bill passed to ban ban seclusion, ban corporal punishment, and prevent restraint through prevention and teaching teachers new strategies. So I'm also active on that state level. And I know that takes another chunk of your time, but maybe that's what you're passionate about. And that's where you want to put your time and energy. So I love that you're here, that we have a wonderful group of parents that are already making differences. And what I really would like to see is if we could stop having that us versus them mentality, which I, I've had that as a teacher, I've had that as a parent, I've had that as an advocate. And it's like, no, it's not working. It works maybe for your child, but it's not going to work for the whole district. So I think I've been on my soapbox enough. I want to go over to your comments and questions. So thanks for being here. Michelle is leading change in Nebraska. So yay for Michelle. And Angela is a parent leader influencer in Arizona. And she said, I was told they only do, oh my gosh, I was told they only do UDL in special education classrooms at one school in our district. Wow. So, yes, wouldn't that be lovely to help people understand how UDL is not a special ed thing? UDL is a education thing. And wow, yeah, so that's interesting. You might want to work on that, right? Lisa is another parent leader in Idaho, and she says, I've been talking to representatives in my district. Exactly. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Lisa. And Lisa is also really active and concerned around the restraint and seclusions and the treatment of kids. So yeah, that makes a huge difference. And you know, it's always a good time to talk to your local legislators because you got to put bugs in their ear. They're the ones that make the big decisions, right? Um, and Let's see. Yeah, Michelle says, sounds like your school district has a lot of opportunities. Look at how she changes that. Like, oh my God, look where we are to, hey, we got an opportunity here. Yes, yes, yes. That's what we want to hear, right, Jenny? She said, I agree with this, that how allows doubt to enter. I think we all spend a lot of focus on the frustrations instead of focusing on the vision we see for the future. We don't have to know the how right now. We have to have a clear vision first. I love that you're making this new group, Charmaine. Yes, Jenny, and I know that you will be there and you will be an influencer because Jenny is a mover and shaker in Connecticut. So, and actually, we're sharing information because our Idaho group's working on restraint and seclusion, and Jenny's in Connecticut working with a group on restraint and seclusion. Um, so Lissa says, Charmaine, there's a lot of times a vast divide between teachers, school administration, administrators, etc. Believe the reality of our children and the perspective on what the parent is advocating for. Yeah, and that's, and it's not like I have a magical answer that is going to be like, poof, now we all get along as a happy family. I mean, that's the thing. And it also just comes back to my philosophy that the 3 R's of advocacy are relationships, relationships, relationships. Um, and it takes time to build those. It takes time to have trust. Um, and we got this wonderful opportunity to do that. And even in our membership community, um, I want teachers to be there because we have millions of teachers in our country that are like, yes, they are cheering us on, and maybe they can't do it real vocally because of fear of retaliation, but we have a lot of teachers that really want to see the change that we also want to see as parents. So we want to harness that energy from those teachers, those SLPs, those OTs, those principals, um, harness that power and energy, um, and build on that and know that that's possible. And it might not be what's happening right now in your district, but it can change. It can change. And that's what we're going to be doing, is making big change. Um, so if you can tell, I'm excited about it. Heather says, always listen to that inner feeling. And this is another good point, Heather, um, because as I've been visualizing what I think would be a wonderful community that we can build, is one of the things that I want to share with you is how you can use your energy effectively. And I've been studying this. I've been taking classes and having certification and taking exams. But what it is, it's a concept that we all have a really important strategy that we can use. And I don't want to get into a lot of details right now, but one of the things that we'll be doing in the membership group is looking specifically at your energy type, how you need to be making decisions, how you need to be really strategic in what you're doing. So that's going to be an aspect. And I know, Heather, that would be like a perfect thing because you know what I'm talking about. Um, so Joseph says, can you give an example, please, on a how? So some of the how questions that we ask are, well, how can your child be included when like they're so far behind what everybody else is doing, right? That's a how we hear. Or how can we do this? We don't have enough staff. I mean, how are we going to support your child in there? Or another how question is, how have other people done this? Tell me a district where this is working, right? I mean, that's one of the big questions. How did somebody else do this? And the problem with asking those kinds of questions, like how did somebody else do that too soon, is that what happens is we again look outside of ourselves. It's like we don't have the answers here, so let's look at that district in the state of Washington that has really been making lots of change. How did they do that? Because I want to replicate that and bring that to my district. Well, that isn't necessarily the way they change, the way that they're supporting students might not actually be the same recipe that you can use in Texas. Um, so instead of looking outside for all the answers, one of the things that we can do is look at the gifts and talents that we have on our staff in this building. I mean, if you, and now Michael Remus, I don't know if you've ever heard him speak. He's retired. I still have to try and get him on. But Michael Remus, what he did when he was a new special ed director in Deer Valley, Arizona, Angela probably knows Michael. One of the things that he did was like this, um, he didn't call it this, but it was kind of like an asset assessment of all the stuff, like what their certifications were, what extra training they've had, what their passion is, what they would like to do. And he like saw, like, you look at the tremendous strengths and talents we have with our staff, how can we tap into that? Now, what I want to have happen, my vision is that we also look at parents, right? You are an expert too. And what are the skills and the strengths and the connections that parents have? And it's like, are you, like, if we combine just parents and teachers and did a strengths based program for ourselves, I mean, that would be tremendous. But then to me, here comes our dog. Then to me, the missing part is, what about the student voice? We have, the other thing that I haven't realized enough and really like held on to this is we are just allies to our children. We are allies to other students. The student needs to be at the center of the change that we're looking at to create. And we are helping. We are in a support role, but we have to have student voices. So in our new membership community, I really am going to be looking for students that also, not as a token input, but to really talk with us, share with us, because the students are the ones that we have to be listening to. So, Joseph, let me know if that helped. I can kind of go on and on. Lisa is here and she said, especially with the rollout of disability inclusive curriculum, yes, into schools in Pennsylvania, folks think that this is for the disabled students. No, it's for all the students in the general ed classroom. Yeah, and look, I know Lisa's been really working hard on this for more than a year. So thank you, Lisa, for all the collaborative advocacy that you've been doing, and that you got this bill passed with others, right, in Pennsylvania. And this is like another project, I don't know, project doesn't sound good, but I mean, I remember Michelle, a parent in Colorado, and one of the things that she talked about was, she wanted to get a list of books that the library and the school could carry to make sure that, other students, disabilities, differences in gender identification, race, whatever, like those students would see themselves in the library books that they have in their building. So working with others and coming up with a list, having your local PTO purchase some of those books. So it's available in the school library. It's not like, oh, the special ed room gets the set of books. So be thinking of different things that you would like to work together with other people in your local area. And, encourage them to be with our membership community. And if not, you take the information back and you share so we can keep expanding the efforts, because our kids don't have time to wait, right? Yes, no more advocacy, activism. I know. And I wonder, and I was thinking about that word, because advocacy we use a lot. And activism, to me, it's like, no, this is like, we're going for change, right? So I appreciate that, because, yeah, that might be the term that we want to use more, right? And Michelle, she says, I'm so excited to hear about this. I know. And Michelle, I want you to join us. Um, Lisa says, great ideas getting students involved. And, you know, hopefully you'll see that too. Like when you plan on going to a school board meeting and presenting something or talking for public comment time, how many students do you have that come to the board meeting and address the board? And not just disabled students, but other students, right? Because this is not going to be focused on only kids with disabilities and how can we change things for them. This is focused on the whole school community. And so look at your district committees. How many students are on a district committee? Look at, you know, a myriad of things like that. Like, does your child go to their own IEP meetings? What are some ways that we can infuse and make sure that that student voice is heard? Um, and Lisa says teacher prep programs, right? Should be all special ed. There's no more general ed only classrooms. We don't need general ed and special ed. We just need educators. Yes, and that was on a state level committee that I worked on here in Idaho when I first moved here, was to get the certification changed in Idaho. So all teachers would be certified both in special ed and general ed. That's the kind of certification I got back in the 70s in Pennsylvania. Um, and we didn't get far. um, so instead, we kind of focused on UDL and how we could help others, you know, teachers and parents know about UDL. Um, so yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, right? There's a lot that needs to change at the higher ed level as far as what teachers are being exposed to and what they're learning, right? Um, and Abby has doing an excellent job in her school district in Kentucky, and she has a group of parents that are like ignited and ready to go. She said, we are as parents are doing this thing, but the district and the teachers are not. The culture needs to change. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's, you know, we just have to expand, right? And I often say, like, widen our circle of allies, um, keeping the student at the center. And you know, we don't, I don't know, we don't want these separate special ed groups. At least I don't. And there are some advantages of you being with other parents and bouncing ideas and, you know, getting support. That's really important. But again, when we have those two silos, like I think Lisa was saying, right, is you know, the special ed silo, the general ed silo, that has to be dismantled. We just have to talk about classrooms. We just have to talk about teachers, educators, and not have this division, because that division just perpetuates. We're doing separate things all the time, right? You guys are so good with all your comments. You know what I want to do is I want to give away a copy of Peter Block's book, because I don't know, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think you will too. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close my eyes and scroll through the comments, and then I'll stop and I'll pick a winner. Okay. So, let's see here. I'm closing my eyes. I'm scrolling and I stopped. Abby! I love the idea of student involvement. Well, guess what? You were going to be the owner of a wonderful book, Peter Block. The answer to how is yes. So, Abby, I don't know if I have your mailing address, so can you give that to me? Um, and I'll get you a book ordered to your house. And Facebook user, I'm not sure who you are. Thanks for being here. I'd suggest creating a special ed PTA, special ed parent teacher. There is one in Virginia that is a fantastic model. So yeah, can you, look up a link for that group or something. I would love to see, how they're doing things. Um, I think of groups like in Arlington, Ohio, that made like a huge difference for kids with dyslexia and looking at the reading curriculum. I know Boulder, Colorado had a similar, you know, variety of people working on reading curriculum and, reading strategies and such. Um, there's several groups and states working on restraint and seclusion. So there's a lot of different things we could work on. But yeah, I would love to see what they're doing in Virginia. Um, and the state of Florida has actually passed a bill that requires every school district to grade themselves on their inclusiveness. How wonderful, huh? That would be interesting. So I'm not sure if you can let me know your name so I don't have to call you Facebook user. Um, I want to know about that too. So, and Heather is on, and she's from Florida. So I don't know if you two know each other, but that might be a connection that you want to build on. So yeah, can you let us know? Is there a link for that bill in Florida so we could look that up? Um, so Abby says, "Oh, thank you! Can't wait to read it." Good, good, good. Oh, Michelle, I don't know why you come up as Facebook user. Yeah, so Michelle, can you give me that information from Florida? That would be cool. Yeah, I don't know why your name isn't showing either. Michelle is the administrator for the 100% inclusion for students. I don't know. Michelle, because I just type in 100% and your group pops up. But Michelle, let us know what group you have. And she's got a wonderful group of people looking for how can we change the system so it's more inclusive. So Michelle said it's called BPIE. So I have to look that up. And Michelle, are you like in the center part of the state now, Jacksonville? Heather, who's on here, is in the Sarasota area. But yeah, you could connect with each other. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed today. I am pumped and excited and energetic because look at the potential we have for change. It's like mind blowing. So, like I said, if you're interested in knowing more about the membership community that will be coming out in January, it will be a paid community, um, and worth every penny because we are going to be making big, big, big differences. So I hope you will join us next Thursday. We're going to talk about what would be better questions to ask instead of all the how questions. So come back. It's kind of a part two. We'll be looking at what questions you can actually ask that are going to give you um, better information. So Lisa says that she's interested. Michelle says the group is 100% inclusion for individuals with special education needs. So follow that group if you're not. Liz, thank you. Liz is a wonderful, I like a Shibori dyer of articles of clothing. Plus, she cooks wonderful meals. So look at the gifts and talents you have. Um, and Joseph says bye and thank you. Actually, it's coming from Laura. So thank you all for being here. I am Charmaine Tanner and I am passionate about making bigger change. And we're going to do this. We're like in the present moment, we are starting and we are going to do this. Right? 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 Yes. Okay. Until next Thursday, you guys have an awesome time and we will see you next week. So take care.